looks like we're live. Yes, we are. Hmm. So my chat seems to be empty. I looked at it before, there was some comments on there, but there's none there now. I can see I've got 4 people watching. Don't know what's going on here. Ah, here we are. Nothing but the blues. How you doing? Hi, Alex. Right, so it is working. I was getting a bit worried there because there was a few comments on there before the stream started, but then they disappeared. Hello, Cyborg. Nice to see you again. How's everyone doing? So, what do you guys make of the news about the new making of the first Godfather film, directed by Barry Levinson? Levinson, who really hasn't had a hit in a long time, but it's got a pretty decent cast so far. Oscar Isaac and of course Jake Gyllenhaal, both terrific actors in their own right. I I was because I kind of felt that there was going to be some kind of big announcement for the Godfather because there was so much news about it. Like you had Coppola's the death of Michael Corleone, which is coming out this December, and the Offer, which is a TV show, TV series coming out, 10-part TV series coming out next year, I think, which is about again the making of the Godfather from Al Ruddy's experience, who was the producer, one of the producers, and then we've got this new project, which is another making of project, but a movie, and a movie starring 2 pretty heavyweight actors, I would say. So I mean, maybe this is the peak of the announcement. So who knows? Maybe in a couple of days, weeks. Can you imagine if they say, right, Godfather Part 4 announced? What would you make of that? What do you think? Would you want to see one? Because obviously it's a weird one, isn't it? I can see it happening. I can see Hollywood doing something crazy like that. But I mean, there's no chance it will ever stack up to the first, to maybe not even to the third film. For one, I mean, one of the main reasons it's been so long, hasn't it? But I don't think it should ever happen unless Coppola does it. Even though he's past his prime as well, but there's an authenticity to it. It's like Andy Garcia said in an interview that it has to be done by Coppola, and if not Coppola, then his daughter Sofia Coppola, because then there's a kind of authenticity to it. If somebody else comes along and makes it just won't feel right. But even still, they shouldn't make a fourth one. If they did, I would be interested in seeing what they would want to tackle with it. But nah. But I do like the idea of a movie about the making of the Godfather, because like, as I mentioned in my video, I won't go through it again because obviously I've talked about it in my video. But there's a lot they could do, a lot they could tackle, because the shoot was so interesting, so many things going on, real life mob involvement, and it could just, you could even make a comedy out of it. Because like films like The Producers, they tackle these kind of topics very well, the infighting and all that kind of stuff, and it's supposed to be centered around the beef between Robert Evans and Francis Ford Coppola as they struggle to get the film made. It is an interesting project, and I think there's potentially a good movie there if Levinson can do the business. Which, who knows? He I've seen a few of his recent films. I watched Paterno and The Wizard of Lies. Sorry, they're all right. I thought Wizard of Lies was quite good, but they definitely have the TV feel to them. The TV movies. I do wonder if Levinson has the ability to make a kind of proper Hollywood film, which it looks like this is shaping up to be. So let's be hopeful. I think there's potentially a good movie there. There's definitely a potential there. because there's this. I mean, I don't think they're going to cover this because it's more Al Ruddy side, which will be covered in the best offer. I mean, what am I talking about? Best offer, the offer, the new TV series of The Godfather. But the whole thing with Joe Colombo and him stalling production and then helping production and then real life mafia figures being on set and the alleged appearance of Russell Buffalino talking to Marlon Brando, all that kind of stuff is really cool, you know. So this is a lot they could do with it. Yeah, Cyborg says, I love the idea of Godfather making of movie. Same here. Gyllenhaal and Isaac are some of my favorite actors. Alex K says, it's kind of interesting news. Really love Isaac and Gyllenhaal, but I think the making of Apocalypse Now was way more thrilling. I'm still excited though. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll make a sequel, and the sequel will be about Apocalypse Now. Of course, we all know about the Heart of Darkness documentary shot by Coppola's wife, which is a documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now. A very revealing picture, and you know they could do a lot with that story as well. I think Tropic Thunder, the comedy movie with Ben Stiller and Robert Downey Jr., I think that borrowed elements a lot from Coppola's shoot behind Apocalypse Now, which kind of shows you that there's a lot to be done there. There's a lot that could be done, sorry. Alex K says The Godfather 4 will be crazy, but I can't imagine them doing it. I wouldn't put anything past. When I saw that they remade Ben-Hur, that was it, you know. I can't. And then they made a sequel to The Wizard of Oz, and so many other things they've done that are just so weird. I can see it happening. I can see somewhere down the line them saying, even a remake, you know. Can you imagine they actually remake The Godfather? I can see them doing that as well, because Hollywood is just crazy now. They've literally run out of ideas. And all the good ideas, they refuse to make them. And so the people with good ideas, they go to Amazon, they go to Netflix, they go to this person, that person, they go to the independent world. It's a real shame, you know. Hollywood has the tools, they can do the business, but it's just depressing, isn't it? Mr. Red says, I don't like the idea of another Godfather and Scarface. I think the classic should be left alone. Yeah, I mean, because it's interesting, because I don't want to see one now, Godfather Part 4. It would be ridiculous. But I would have liked to see the original Godfather Part 4 in the late 90s, where Coppola and Puzo were working on telling the rise of Sonny Corleone, the timeline being the bridge between the first two movies, and following Andy Garcia's character taking the family into the new age. And I mentioned in my video of it that it was a case of, okay, they've ruined it now with the third film. The third film, which is a decent movie, but it was a major step down. So why not take it further, you know? I mean, in my video, I compared it to the Alien franchise, where I said the first two are amazing, and they kind of ruined it with the third film. And so why not just continue and just see where it goes? You know, you might get a good film here and there. So I would have liked to see what they would have done with it then. But, you know, now, no chance, you know. Snaggle says, I hate the idea of Godfather Paul. I'm incredibly quiet. Yeah, I think I was having issues with my microphone. That was actually why I delayed the live stream by 5 minutes. I was working on it. So something off with it. No worries, Mr. Butterfield. You're working today. I'll catch you next week then. Cyborg says, you made me laugh in your video when you said that Hollywood might be so out of ideas for new projects that we could see a lot of making of movies, and you might be right. Yeah, I mean, there's already 3, isn't there? You got the Mank, is it called? David Fincher making a making of Citizen Kane, and he's got Gary Oldman in that cast. Ben Affleck is doing one for Chinatown, Roman Polanski's Chinatown, and of course this movie. And obviously this isn't the first, you know, there's been a lot of movies about making movies, but it's just, you know, 3 movies in a short space of time. Could this be the start of a new trend? I can see it happening, you know, if one of these becomes successful. It's funny though, isn't it? You know, they make classic movies and now the new trend is the making of those classic. I mean, if these movies are successful, are we going to see a making of movie about the making of the movie of The Godfather? Oh man, I'm confused already. It's too meta for me. David says, what are some of your favorite meats? Meats? Chicken, lamb, beef. Mr. Red says, I'm tired of Hollywood remakes. Reboots, no more. Just be original for once. At least come up with your own ideas. Mr. Red, aren't we all, man? It's a poor place we are at now amid mainstream Hollywood. A terrible place. Creativity goes to die there, you know. It's a big shame. Big shame. Because they've got the cash, they've got the talent, but the guys who run the show are the Hollywood suits, you know. Maybe there needs to be some kind of implosion. Maybe the COVID fiasco, which has threatened so many things, including cinemas, including film studios, maybe this could actually be something that works in the favor of film fans, in that these insane budget superhero films that are all generic and all the same start dying out, and they instead, you know, try their hand at a few smaller scale mid-budget movies. You know, the death of the mid-budget film is one of the saddest things about modern cinema, in my opinion. Very, very sad indeed. Snaggle says, Sofia Coppola, her films aren't anything like Godfather, and she helped destroy Godfather Part 4. Yeah, I mean, that was Andy Garcia's idea. He was like, if Francis doesn't do Part 4, if anybody should do it, it should be his daughter. I mean, I can see that. I understand where he's coming from, because it's the authenticity argument that I was making. But obviously, she's a much more of a different film director than her dad was. Sorry, he's not dead yet. Mr. Red says, what's next? Goodfellas 2. Joe Pesci's character comes back from the dead. It'll be a horror film. I'll tell you something. I don't know if you guys know this. Some of you might. There's actually a sequel to Raging Bull. Did you know that? What was it called? It was called the Bronx Bull, I think it's called. And there's an actor from there who plays Jake LaMotta. He was in Once Upon a Time in America, and he was in Boardwalk Empire. Good actor, but he plays Jake LaMotta. And I remember Scorsese commenting on it, saying that they did everything they needed to do in the story. There was no reason for there to be a sequel, but they actually made one of those. Apparently, it's not very good, from what I hear. It didn't get a big release. But, you know, crazier things have happened. Taxi Driver sequel was talked about by De Niro. He wanted to make it. Scorsese was interested. Paul Schrader, the writer, said it was the stupidest idea he's ever heard. So, you know, Hollywood has a lot of weird film ideas out there. Have you guys heard the one about Gladiator? You know, Gladiator is a standard period piece, you know, a great film. But there was a sequel idea floating about where Russell Crowe's character comes back to life, and he just basically floats, I can't speak properly, floats through several time periods, including the modern day. And it just sounded so bizarre, and apparently that script has been written and it's finished. So Hollywood has some weird ideas, man. Cyborg says, my mum hates Francis Ford Coppola. You know, when she arrived in France in the 90s, a lot of people were making jokes about The Godfather and Italian people being all gangsters. I mean, I can see that, yeah. There's a lot of stigma with various ethnicities. That actually was referenced in The Sopranos, wasn't it? There was an episode where I think it was Melfi's family, Dr. Melfi. Everybody's sitting down at the table, and they're talking about the stereotype of Italians all being gangsters. And there's something like a percentage that one of the characters mentioned, something like only 7% or something like that. Only 7% of all Italians are associated with crimes or something like that, and they will toast to the other 90-something percent. Snaggle says the Many Saints of Newark is just called Newark now. Well, I heard of that. A few months back. I mentioned it in a few of my videos, but I'm not sure, to be honest, because there's a poster out there that says Many Saints of Newark, but I never made a video on the poster because I'm not sure if the poster is real. It could be a fan-made poster. I did hear that it was just called Newark, which is a bit of a shit title, isn't it? But I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm hearing different things about that, hence me not really talking about it too much until we hear something more concrete. But these recent news about the movie refilming, the movie's release date being changed, all that kind of stuff. They always keep saying the Many Saints of Newark. So I guess, I mean, I don't know. Mr. Red has seen the Bronx Bull. How'd you find it? Was it worth watching? Cyborg asks, who gave the toughest challenge to Leo DiCaprio? Daniel Day-Lewis in Gangs of New York or Jack Nicholson in The Departed? Well, I mean, I'm not really. I don't want to start a fight here with all you guys swearing at me, but I'm not really the biggest fan of Leonardo DiCaprio. And it's funny you mentioned those two films because I felt as though he was shown up in those two films, and the two Titanic actors, D-Day and Nicholson, highlighted what exactly a terrific actor is, and they kind of showed him up. I thought he was pretty lame in Gangs of New York. The accent didn't sound authentic. In The Departed, he was always shaking and squirming in The Departed, and it was kind of obvious that this guy was the rat, and Nicholson's Costello looked like an idiot for not realizing it. But those two I thought gave really good performances. I guess Jack Nicholson in The Departed was, he was just kind of doing it. It's Jack, isn't it? He looks like he was having a lot of fun, and he gave a great performance. But it was nothing that he couldn't do, with his eyes closed. I thought Daniel Day-Lewis in Gangs of New York was amazing. It was such a scenery chewing, scene stealing, over the top. Some might say caricature, but whatever it was, I thought it was very effective. And it was one of those performances, when you could listen to a guy speak all day. That's what I felt with Daniel Day-Lewis's Bill the Butcher. I loved the way he talked. I loved the way he moved, his mannerisms, the way he exploded. I thought it was a brilliant performance. It's one of my favorite Daniel Day performances. Snaggle says Bronx Bull, Forsyth, is that how you pronounce it? Forsyth's attempting to play Lamotte at 20 years old was ridiculous. So he's playing him 20 years old. Damn. Yeah, I heard that it was supposed to cover the time period before Raging Bull and after Raging Bull, which to me kind of sounds like all the boring parts of Lamotte's life. Alex Spur says, I heard Scorsese was wanting to make a Mike Tyson biopic. I guess he's not doing it anymore. Well, that's interesting, because Scorsese hates boxing. He's made that clear, and we all know the story of how he made Raging Bull, where he was on his deathbed. He had done loads of drugs, and it was affecting his health. And De Niro came to him with the book Raging Bull, and he was unconvinced at first, but then when De Niro started to explain it, he was on board. And it was more of a thing. It wasn't really a boxing movie. We've all seen Raging Bull, and we know that it's not really a boxing movie, is it? It's it's a drama. It's got a lot of other things going on, and sorry about that. Don't know what happened there, but yeah, that's one of the reasons why I find it so weird when this news came out that Scorsese might be making a Mike Tyson biopic. Again, the reason why I think it would be interesting is because obviously with the Mike Tyson biopic, you can do so much more than just the boxing. His life is very interesting. But the only person ever talking about this is Jamie Foxx. I think I've heard him mention it twice now. Nobody else has ever talked about this project. As in, no one has ever mentioned Scorsese is doing it. To me, this kind of sounds like Fox is trying to drum up hype for his project because he wants to play Mike Tyson. That's the only thing I can see, really. I have never heard anything concrete that Scorsese is doing a Mike Tyson biopic. I've only heard it from Fox's mouth, so do with that what you will. I don't think it's genuine because obviously he's going to do Killers of the Flower Moon. He wanted to do Devil in the White City, but there was script issues with that, and then they turned it into a TV show. And apart from that, there's things he's wanting to dabble in, but he's never mentioned a Mike Tyson biopic, so I don't really know about that, to be honest. Alright, let me just scroll back up in the chat. Alex K says, well, Blade Runner 2049 is one of the best sequels ever made in my opinion, but they had the right director behind it. Yeah, I mean, I think that Blade Runner 2049 was a brilliant film, because it's kind of funny because if all the films that definitely should not have a sequel, it's Blade Runner, because the ending, just making a sequel nullifies the ending of the original Blade Runner, and then to see that they ended up doing it and they did it right was pretty much incredible. But again, like you said, they had the right director for that. I think a movie like Blade Runner 2049 is more the anomaly. It's more the exception to the rule. Snaggle says, "What about Tom Hardy's Capone movie? It was a dreadful, despite Matt Dillon. Yeah, that was shit. Couldn't stand that. Really bizarre movie. I don't really know what the director was trying there. Well, I mean, I do know, but he failed miserably. You can't really have a movie focusing on the regrets of an aged older mobster without actually showing us the prime of his life and why he's got these regrets. But there's loads of stupid things about that movie. The only thing that was really interesting was Capone shitting himself about 3 times in the film. Mr. Red says, "I saw The Bronx Boy on YouTube not too long ago. It's good, not the greatest, a bit of a B movie." It seems so, yeah. Cyborg's asking, which sequel is better than the original? The Godfather 2, Empire Strikes Back, Terminator 2, The Dark Knight, or Blade Runner 2049? Well, for me, okay, going through that list, I've lost it now. Hang on. Oh, here we are. I prefer the first Godfather to the second one. Just about. It feels more cohesive. It's less confusing and it takes less time to get going. But both are amazing films. Empire Strikes Back definitely is better than A New Hope. Terminator 2, I prefer to Terminator 1, but they're both different films. Terminator 2 is more of an action film. It's more expansive, huge budget, whereas the first one is kind of 80s tech noir horror. The Dark Knight, again, slightly different film to Batman Begins, made in a different style, but again, I prefer it to Batman Begins, but both of those two are good. I didn't really like the third one, Dark Knight Rises. And with Blade Runner 2049, I still think I prefer the original. But again, both are really good films. Snaggle says, "I doubt Sophia would want to direct Godfather 4. She's finally put Godfather 3 behind her and made a career separate to her dad." Yeah, I mean, because she must be aware of what critics said about her performance. Her dad is definitely aware, so definitely she knows. Would she want to make it as a kind of comeback kind of thing, if that makes sense? Or would you want to distance herself from it completely? Well, I mean, we're just talking about fluff, really, because there's no concrete plans, as we know at the moment, of a fourth movie being made. Cyborg says, what would you think if a prequel show of The Sopranos came out after The Many Saints? That is quite interesting. Obviously, it relies on the strength of The Many Saints of Newark. Let's say, for instance, it's a brilliant film, everybody loves it, and it leaves a lot of room for a kind of series or maybe a sequel movie. I can see it being a possibility, but I don't think it'll happen. I don't really want it to happen, because The Sopranos has quite impressive world building, and it would be kind of too on the nose to see all that world that's built up, that's talked about, actually shown on screen. Like, can you imagine we get a season of a prequel of The Sopranos, or 2 seasons, whatever, and you get scenes of the whole jacket incident with Richie Aprile, the old guys all going to prison, the class of the 80s. And then obviously there's casting issues, casting young Phil Leotardo, casting a young Johnny Sack, Carmine. Which I mean, I guess that's also an issue with the movie. But I think it all depends on story. You know, is there enough content there? I don't want to see a prequel show of The Sopranos where it's literally just recreating all the events that were talked about in The Sopranos, like Tony robbing the card game and all that kind of stuff. It's one where, because The Sopranos is perfect, you know. Even making a prequel movie, you know, why go back there and risk ruining it, risk bringing the pedigree of The Sopranos down? I am looking forward to the movie, but I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'd say let's see how good the film is first before we start talking about another series of The Sopranos. Of course, if there was a prequel series, it would take place not towards the tail end of the mafia, but and not the prime either, but you know, the 80s or 90s or 70s, whenever it's going to be set. You've got a lot to play with there, but I wouldn't want to see kind of a greatest hits kind of thing where they just basically go through a tick list of all the famous things that were talked about in the show, you know, because they'd ruin the world building like that. Mr. Red says William Forsythe was already in his 50s by the time he was in Bronx Boom. Blimey. Snaggle says it wasn't Hollywood who did that Gladiator 2 time travel. I think Nick Cave wrote the script for that. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. Nick Cave did that one. Snaggle says May Saint is a better name because of the link to Multisanti. Yeah, I agree. Definitely. Newark is a kind of cop out, you know, it's too generic. Many Saints of Newark is much better because obviously Many Saints, we all know, you know, what it means in Italian. Daniel's asking, is it called Many Saints of Newark? We don't really know at the moment. It seems so, but there seems to be a lot of people saying that it might just be called Newark. Who knows? Alex Spur says, I really don't see how the new Scarface remake is going to be any good. Scarface doesn't need to be remade. Al Pacino's Scarface is already a remake. I agree, and I don't agree at the same time. So basically, uh, the I've talked about this a few times. The story template of Scarface for me is quite generic. It's literally just a rise and fall of a criminal. You know, a guy who gets, you know, don't get high in oil supply, that kind of stuff. Guy starts a criminal empire. It gets too big. The heat gets too much. He dies. That's it. You know, he goes up. He stays at the top. Then he comes back down. And I can see that template being taken, and the time period being changed, the location being changed, and I can see it working. But if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna change so much, then it's not really Scarface anymore, is it? You might as well change the name, change the IP, but they're not gonna do that because obviously Scarface will sell tickets just calling it that. So you know, I'm torn on that. Like most people, I don't want to see a remake of Scarface. I don't think they're gonna do it good, but that's mainly because of where Hollywood is now. I do think, in theory, a good Scarface remake could be done, but I don't think it's gonna be done. If you understand what I mean, it's just the story template is very generic, and it could be done, but it doesn't even need to be called Scarface. Mr. Red said Tom Hardy's Capone could have been good. There were many opportunities to turn that into a really good film. Yes, there was. I mean, it could have been a lot better, especially when you got Tom Hardy in your film. But that film was it's just gonna fade. You know, it's gonna fade away. People are gonna forget it even exists. Did anybody enjoy it? Did any of you guys like it? Tom Hardy's Capone film, the one directed by Josh Trank last year. Daniel Cardiff says Dark Knight felt more like a heist movie. It had Heat vibes all the way. Yeah, I mean the tone and the look definitely inspired by Heat. I mean, what you call it? Christopher Nolan even admits this, and he had an interview that's shared on YouTube with the cast and director of Heat. He's quick to admit the Heat influences on The Dark Knight, and I'm happy with him for that. Wear it on your sleeve, and you could even say that the characters of the Joker and the Batman are based on Neil McCauley and Vincent Hanna, two sides of the same coin. They kind of need each other, but they're going after each other. All that kind of stuff. The look of The Dark Knight as well, very much so. Inspired, lifted, copied, some might say, from Michael Mann's Heat. Lawrence is asking opinions on Black Mass starring Johnny Depp. Yeah, I watched that when it came out. I thought it was okay. I didn't really think it was anything special. It has not made a lasting impression on me. As in, I don't really look back on it and think of it fondly. I think it was quite ordinary. It was boosted by a cool performance by Johnny Depp. Remember, this is when he was kind of going through his cartoon phase and people were getting a bit annoyed and a bit tired, and he kind of showed that he could still give a decent performance. It was still a bit of a cartoony performance where he puts on a heavy accent and he's under heavy makeup. But he was interesting to watch, but ultimately the film was a bit pedestrian, a bit ordinary. They could have done a lot more with it. Snaggle says Heat was a remake of LA Takedown. Yeah, if you guys don't know, Michael Mann remade his own movie. So he made a TV movie called LA Takedown, which, if I remember correctly, was supposed to be the pilot of a new TV show that failed. And then, obviously in 1995, he went and remade that into Heat. So it's quite interesting. And there's only about a 6-7 year gap between the two films, and there's such a huge gap in quality as well. Quite strange. There's not a lot of instances of a director remaking his own film I can think of. I know Hitchcock did it, Alfred Hitchcock, with The Man Who Knew Too Much. I can't really think of any other examples off the top of my head. Cyborg asks, who did a better job portraying Al Capone, De Niro in The Untouchables, Stephen Graham in Boardwalk Empire, or Tom Hardy in Capone? Well, like you say, Cyborg, we can forget about Tom Hardy. Well, with me, I know he's probably my favourite actor of all time, but I didn't really like De Niro that much as Al Capone. You've got arguably the greatest gangster actor of all time playing the most famous gangster of all time. It should have worked, got Brian De Palma directing, but he just came off as a bit of a caricature, It was a bit of a hammy, wacky performance, which, in fairness, it did suit the film, and on subsequent viewings I did warm up to it. But Graham's performance, and obviously he has the advantage of being in a TV show, so he's got more screen time. I thought Graham's performance was really good. I love the way they add depth to the character with the whole thing about his son, and he was a very emotive performance, a lot of energy. He was very scary. With De Niro, because if I was in a room with Stephen Graham's Al Capone or De Niro's Al Capone, I'll be more scared of Stephen Graham's. I think he might just lash out at me randomly, whereas De Niro's not so much. He might start cackling goofily and put a cigar in his mouth. So I was never really that much of a big fan of De Niro's Al Capone. But Stephen Graham's was brilliant, perhaps the best, easily the best, I would say, so far. We've not really had a definitive Al Capone performance, I don't think. I liked Rod Steiger's one. There was an Al Capone film made in 1959. I've reviewed it on the channel if you're interested. I thought he did really well. But, Stephen Graham, I think, has set the bar at the moment. And, yeah, Tom Hardy failed to hit that. Mind Elikas, I think that's how you say it. Hey, Senioranta, we really enjoy your videos. Thank you for your hard work. You are amazing on what you do. Keep it up. Thank you so much. That's. I really appreciate saying that. Stangle says Miller's Crossing is one of my favorite ever films. I need to rewatch that. I saw that ages ago when I was a kid. I remember really liking that film. The Coen Brothers Prohibition era mobster film. I don't really remember much of it though. Cyborg says, Better Call Saul, the prequel to Breaking Bad, has shown the entire industry how a prequel show needs to be made. It's absolutely amazing. I've heard so much about both, but I've not seen either Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad. But I know of its success. So I mean, like you said, whatever they've done with that, clearly it's working. Snaggle says, I'm not getting my hopes up about the Many Saints of New York. I was excited about the Deadwood movie and the Breaking Bad spin-off El Camino. They both are mediocre cash-ins. Well, it's interesting you say that. I can't comment on the Breaking Bad movie because I ain't seen it. But I'd never thought Deadwood was a cash-in. I felt as though it could have been better, yeah, but it was like the last-ditch attempt to get a Deadwood conclusion out there. I didn't feel it was a cash-in. No, but I mean, I like you say, I wasn't too impressed with it. But the series was brilliant. I've reviewed everything on the channel, by the way. The first 3 seasons and the movie, if you're interested. Great show. The movie was okay. I appreciated it. I didn't love it. Mr. Red says, I still haven't seen Tom Hardy's Capone, but I can tell it's really bad. It is, it's really boring. That's the worst sin a film can commit. The very worst thing about a film there can be is that it's boring. The only thing that's entertaining is that he shits himself in he's getting interviewed or interrogated by the FBI, and his poop just starts coming out, and it made me laugh out loud. That's the only interesting thing about the film. Mr. Red says, oh yeah, Christopher Nolan did a Q&A with Michael Mann, Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. You can easily find it on YouTube. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Daniel says, I was watching Black Mass, then midway through decided to watch Donnie Brasco. I mean, that's a great summary of the film, to be honest. It's like an inferior version of Donnie Brasco in many ways. The Oncoming Storm says, have you seen Killing Them Softly with Brad Pitt and James Gandolfini? I think it's one of the most underrated films of the past decade. I have seen it, yeah. I really liked it. I was kind of taken aback when I went online and I saw that it was getting ravaged with reviews, people saying it was boring, nothing happens, all that. I thought it was really good. Not every film has to be some kind of epic crime saga. Not everything has to be Goodfellas or The Godfather. There's many small-scale crime films that go unnoticed because they're small-scale. The Drop is another one, a decent film made, I think, in 2014 with James Gandolfini and Tom Hardy. That was a good film. And Killing Them Softly, I thought was really good. I'm a big fan of that film. Alex K says, opinion on Deliverance, one of my all-time favorite movies. The acting is so brilliant. I haven't seen that. I've heard so much about it. I've heard so much about that rape scene as well. But yeah, I've never actually gotten around to seeing it. I do need to see that. I'm just scrolling back up the chat because I've lost the chat. A lot of people commenting. Where are we? Versus, have you ever played LA Noire? It's a Rockstar game that was made in between the Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption games. Yeah, I have. I've got LA Noire. I finished it. I really liked it. I think I perhaps enjoyed it more because I was playing it with my sibling, as in me and my sibling were playing it, discussing the cases, who we thought was gonna be the murderer, all that kind of stuff. If I played it on my own, I think I'd have been a little bit more bored. But I mean, it is a good game. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people said it was boring. The face thing didn't work. The whole facial recognition thing. But I thought it was really good. It's a good game. They should make more games like that. That kind of divert from the whole usual shooting and killing kind of stuff and try to do something a little bit different. I thought the detective elements were really cool. I liked interrogating people and seeing how different actions could get different reactions and using the clues and the evidences and the notebook and all that kind of stuff. I liked it. Alien 1 was good. I don't think Rockstar actually made it though. I think they just published it. I think it was actually produced by a different company. El Russes watched Deep Impact last night for the first time in years. For a popcorn movie, the acting, cast, characters, and direction was all that was well executed. It didn't matter the effects looked dated. I haven't seen that. Deep Impact. Nah, no, I've not seen that one. Alex K says The Exorcist or The Shining. I think The Shining, because I think it holds up better. So it has more rewatch value. But not only that, it still has the same effect. You know, it's amazing when you, because I wasn't alive when the Exorcist came out, but it's amazing seeing what the reactions were. You know, people actually fainting in the cinema, people running out of the cinema. I've seen the clips on YouTube and stuff. It's crazy. But obviously, you watch The Exorcist today and it doesn't have the same effect. There's a few scenes that are actually kind of funny unintentionally, but you know, I appreciate the film. But I think if I had to choose between the two, The Shining has to take it. The Exorcist, I think, is actually scarier, but The Shining is a better film and it has better rewatch value. Snaggle says Bob Hoskins nearly played Capone in The Untouchables. I love Graham, but Capone was 6'2" and locked away at 32 years old. They always portray him as too old and too small. I think Bob Hoskins would have been a really good pick. He would have been if he could nail the accent, because he's kind of, you know, inherently British. You always hear the kind of Cockney. Is it Cockney? I'm from London. No, I don't think it's Cockney, but you know, we all know how Bob Hoskins speaks. And The Long Good Friday was a brilliant British gangster film. But he had the perfect look to play Al Capone. But if he could nail the accent, he would have been brilliant. But you know, I agree with you, Snaggle. For some reason, the people who play Capone seem to be short all the time. When he wasn't, was he? But it seems to be that the narrative is now that Capone was short simply because that's how he's portrayed in films. Snaggle says Gandolfini would have made a great Capone. Yeah, I think that's a given, isn't it? Capone, played by Gandolfini, is a perfect match. Snaggle says David Milch has Alzheimer's, so it was really his last chance to conclude Deadwood. Yeah, I mean that's what I was talking about. Part of the reason why it was really just a last ditch attempt at making a Deadwood movie, hence why I appreciate the film so much. But I'm not really a big lover of it. Snaggle also says watch Miller's Crossing again. Seriously, give it a second viewing. Now you're a film buff. I must do, seriously. I'm actually quite behind with the Coens brothers. I've seen maybe about 5 or 6 of their films, but I've never really dived deep into their entire filmography. Snaggle says Killing Them Softly is a remake of The Friends of Eddie Coyle. Oh, is it? Because I've heard a lot of The Friends of Eddie Coyle. I've been wanting to watch that for a long time. I didn't know Killing Them Softly was a remake. Daniel says, I'm still afraid The Exorcist. Oh, sorry, I think it says I'm still afraid of The Exorcist, but Shining all the way. Snaggletooth. Nolan, what do you guys think of Tenet? I hated it. I haven't seen it. I'm going to have to wait until it comes out on physical release, because I've mentioned a few times I struggle to hear what's being said in some of Nolan's films, like The Dark Knight Rises, like in Interstellar. And so many reviews I'm seeing of Tenet are saying that this is the worst of Nolan's films in terms of the sound design. A lot of times you can hardly understand what people are saying, and they talk behind masks a lot of the time. You know, that would just grind my bones, so I'm just going to wait until it comes out in physical release. I can watch it with subtitles. Alex is asking my favourite Sam Peckinpah film. I've only seen The Wild Bunch, I think. Yeah, because let me just have a double check. I think I've only seen that. Let me just have a quick glance at IMDb. Yeah, I've seen Ride the High Country. I saw that years ago. I don't really remember it much about unless yeah, I think it was about two old guys, wasn't it, in the West, and they one of them secretly is planning to kill the other one, but they were both very respectful and were close friends, something like that. But yeah, I've only seen The Wild Bunch and Ride the High Country, so it would have to be The Wild Bunch. But I've not seen a lot of his films. I need to. He's another director I need to catch up on. El Rue says Shining is also very funny in a way and could be recut as a comedy. I agree, it is actually really funny because once you get over the scariness, rewatching is actually pretty hilarious, especially Jack Nicholson, the way he chooses scenery. Cyborg says Silence by Martin Scorsese has been on my mind for a while. It made me realize the contradictions you find in faith and how your relationship with religion changes while you get older. It's interesting you say that. I mean, I guess it depends on which faith. Um, I do have faith, but I'm not a Christian, and I struggle to kind of connect with Andrew Garfield's character in Silence. There's an interesting scene where he actually debates one of the Japanese dudes, and he was so incredibly weak in his theological arguments for the existence of a supreme creator. I'm not sure if that was an intentional decision to kind of show that he essentially has blind faith as opposed to having solid reasons for believing in one God. But I was in that scene. I was watching that scene, thinking, "Come on, man! There's so many better reasons. You've got the fine tuning argument. You've got the continuity argument. There's so many great reasons for arguing the existence of God. And this guy who's got such a strange belief is completely grilling you." But yeah, I mean, uh, I didn't. I didn't feel Silence was as deep and as introspective as I would have liked it to be. It was still a good movie, don't get me wrong, but I think it would have been better if Scorsese had made it in the 70s when he was making films like Raging Bull and Taxi Driver. I think they could have gone real deep with the film then, but Scorsese doesn't really make films that go that deep anymore. I mean, Silence, obviously, I mean, gives it a go. The Irishman, I guess, does. Killers of the Flower Moon apparently is going to do it as well because they're focusing on the bad guys, aren't they? And Scorsese has talked about how he wants to explore essentially what it means to kill a man and how a person can commit genocide by not thinking of other people as human beings. So that should be a good film. Daniel says the main thing I took from Silence was that faith should be with yourself and shouldn't be a tangible thing. See, I think it's an interesting film from a Christian perspective because Andrew Garfield holds on to his faith the entire time, doesn't he? And when he's unable to show it uh, outwardly, he hides it and he still keeps it on the inside. But I suppose I anticipate a film coming from a different angle because ultimately what he does is he believes a certain thing and he just sticks to it regardless of what he's hit with. Um, the whole thing about him being tested that's something I found interesting in that he was starting to lose his faith potentially because of the extreme test he was facing and him praying to God but thinking that there was no answers. But I mean, the thing is, actually, I don't want to go into a religious argument, but I've done a lot of research on religion, and there's a good book actually that I've reviewed on the channel, but I haven't released a review of called The Choice by Ahmed Deedat, where he goes through arguments in the Quran, the Muslim book, and the Bible, the Christian book, and loads of things like that. But I think my biggest problem with Silence is my problem with the Christian faith, as in, especially the whole issue that you don't need proof of the existence of God, that you believe straight up, and anything that contradicts your belief is you being tested. So that's very strange to me because essentially uh, an event could happen that literally proves to you in your face, right in front of you, that your belief is false, but you're going to just take that as, right, no, this is a conspiracy theory, this is not true, this is me being tested. And that I can't buy. In my opinion, you have to have solid ground, solid basis for whatever you believe in. In my opinion, I do feel your beliefs should be scrutinized, and you should have a solid basis for them, if that makes sense. I'm trying to avoid going into a discussion about faith, because then I think we'll be here all day, won't we? Snaggle says Hoskins did a great New York accent in Roger Rabbit. Oh, cool. I didn't know that, because I've not seen all of that. I think I caught bits and pieces when I was a kid, but I never managed to watch the whole thing. Alex Case says, to me it's The Exorcist. I think it's a masterpiece. It definitely is, yeah. I just think I prefer The Shining, but each to his own. El Roos says, No Country for Old Men, in my opinion, the best movie of the last 20 years. I didn't like that. I never really liked No Country for Old Men. I thought the bad guy was interesting, but I was kind of miffed at the way the movie subverted your expectations by, not showing the way, well, I was about to say it, but without giving spoilers away, certain things that you expect to happen that they don't show you, things like that. I mean, maybe it deserves a rewatch because so many people say it's amazing, but I remember watching it thinking, yeah, it was okay, nothing special, a bit slow. I thought it was decent, I never really saw the hype. I much preferred There Will Be Blood, made in the same year. I thought that was amazing. Cyborg asks, what's your favourite soundtrack from The Irishman? Mine is Spanish Eyes, sung by Silvio Dante himself during Frank's Appreciation Night. I read it was Russell and Frank's favourite song. Yeah, I heard it was Buffalino's favourite song. I think it wasn't the version that we hear. It was sung by somebody else. I can't remember who. But yeah, I really like that. That's actually sung during my favourite scene in The Irishman, which is where Peggy and Hoffa are dancing and the camera quickly moves to the left and you see Buffalino, you see Fat Tony, you see the other Tony, and they're talking about killing Hoffa. A very ominous scene that is juxtaposed with the very upbeat and lovely music. That's my favourite scene in the whole film. I like the main track. I like that part where they're going through the Albert Anastasia hit, that kind of funky music. There's a few bits and pieces here, but I'm gonna go with your pick, Silvio Dante singing Spanish Eyes. Alex K says Peckinpah did some really great ones. You should check out Straw Dogs, Pat Garrett, and Billy the Kid, and Getaway. I will do, Alex. I will do. Celtic Bird says, who do you think should play Marlon Brando in the Coppola Godfather movie? My choice would be Tom Hardy. Oh, that'd be difficult, It'd be a difficult thing to do, to try and imitate Marlon Brando, of all people, perhaps the greatest actor of all time. Tom Hardy might be a good pick, though. He definitely has the Brando mumble. That's a fair shout, Snaggle says, True Grit, John Wayne or Jeff Bridges? I'm Jeff Bridges all the way. I haven't seen John Wayne's version, so I wouldn't be able to say, but I did like Jeff Bridges in the Coen Brothers True Grit. Cyborg says, I'm Muslim and I was really moved by silence, but like you say, a religious debate is pointless. I'm Muslim as well, Cyborg. Nice to have another Muslim on the chat. Snaggle says they could get away with far more in the 70s before Heaven's Gate destroyed the studio. Yeah, I mean, that finished the Hollywood New Wave, didn't it? That was a brilliant period in cinema, that early 70s, late 60s, all the way to Heaven's Gate. Ash Harry asks, favorite film to watch at Halloween time. I like watching the Halloween movies. I'm a big fan of them. Obviously, most of them are crap, but I think to be a proper fan of a franchise, you have to sit through everything, and you take the pain of the bad ones as well as the the pleasure you get from the good ones. Like with Star Wars, for example, you have to see the prequels and everything to be a true fan. And I really like the Halloween films. I thought each brought something new to the table, and if any one of them was on TV, I'd probably watch it if it was on during Halloween. Apart from the remakes, which was shit. Snaggletooth says, like Gangs of New York, in silence, Liam Neeson appears for 30 seconds. They piss me off when they advertise De Niro or Neeson and then have them on screen for seconds. I guess you don't like Kingdom of Heaven then, because same thing happens there. Snaggletooth says, Commode thinks The Exorcist is the best film ever made. Does he? Wow. Steve's asking, how much Robert De Niro films have you seen? I think I can actually tell you, because doesn't IMDb have a feature where they can tell you how many of actors' filmography you've rated? Let me just have a look then to answer your question, Steve. I've seen quite a lot. There's a lot that I've yet to see, but I have seen quite a lot of his. Right, it says here, how much of De Niro's works have you seen? I'm going to choose actor. I'm going to choose it in movies. And it says, I've seen 56 Robert De Niro films out of a possible 101. So I've seen 55% of his filmography. That he's feature length films, proper movies, not short films or documentaries or anything like that. So yeah, there you go. Snaggletooth's asking about Sylvia Dante. Yes, so in The Irishman, the actor who plays the singer, you know that scene, Frank Sheeran Appreciation Night, when I think it was when Buffalino gives the ring to Sheeran, and also when all the people are dancing. The singer is played by Steven Van Zandt, who very famously played Silvio Dante in The Sopranos. So yeah, that's what everybody's talking about in the chat. Snaggletooth's talking about Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. That's another movie I need to rewatch. I think I watched it like in the middle of the night or something when I was half asleep. And I remember thinking the acting was amazing, but I didn't understand anything. I was completely lost. Oncoming Storm says, yeah, it's a well-known fact that The Exorcist is Mark Commode's favourite film. I didn't actually know that. I do like Commode. He's a funky guy, you know. I love his passion. I love how passionate he is about films. I didn't know that The Exorcist was his favourite films. Oh, Cyborg's asked a very difficult question for me. If you had to erase one of these directors' filmographies, who would it be? Kubrick or Leone? I don't know if you guys know, but Sergio Leone is my favorite film director of all time. So that is difficult. That is a very difficult question for me. Could I sacrifice Sergio Leone? Could I sacrifice The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the film that got me into films? Once Upon a Time in the West, for a few dollars more, Once Upon a Time in America, to see 2001, A Clockwork Orange, Full Metal Jacket. Oh man, that is difficult. I'll probably shoot myself instead. I don't know, man. but I have to answer your question. I can't just leave you hanging. I'm gonna say Kubrick, cause you know, you can't take my Leon away from me, man. There would be no Senior Answer without Sergio Leone. He's the guy who got me into movies. So yeah. Cyborg says, in the genre of sci-fi, who was the most influential director? Stanley Kubrick, Steven Spielberg, Ridley Scott, or James Cameron? Those are some big names you're throwing around there. Well, I think you could argue, you could make a very strong argument for Kubrick because almost every science fiction film director cites 2001 as a major influence on their works. Um, James Cameron, I guess he is, but he often cites other people as influences, like Ridley Scott or again Stanley Kubrick. And then the Stevens. I mean, those are some big names you've thrown out there, but simply for the sake of how many people I've seen say, yeah, 2001 inspired me, or um, this borrows things off 2001, or just literally how many things you see copied from 2001 A Space Odyssey and other films, I'd have to say Stanley Kubrick. Alex Spur says, have you seen A History of Violence? It's a mob film about a guy running from the mob. No, I haven't. No, that's Cronenberg's film, wasn't it? I saw the other one that he did with the same lead actor. What was it called again? You know, the one about Russians? I can't remember now, but that was quite good. I haven't seen A History of Violence. I do need to check that out. Ridley Scott gave me Blade Runner. That is all, says Daniel. Yeah, that's brilliant film. I absolutely fell in love with Blade Runner. And for his first three films, you know, he had The Duelist. If you guys haven't seen The Duelist, check it out. It was a brilliant film. Ridley Scott's first movie. Then he made Alien. Then he made Blade Runner. I mean, it looked as though this guy was going to become the best film director of all time. You know, but unfortunately, his first three films are his best, in my opinion, at least. Oh, I see. Celtic has actually asked the question on Blade Runner. What do you think of it? My favorite sci-fi movie of all time. Yeah, I love it as well. It's a brilliant, brilliant film. So thought-provoking. It asks so many. Oh, sorry. I just need my microphone. Yeah, Blade Runner has great music. It's got good acting. It asks a lot of cool questions, and the ending. I always really love the ending. Final cut ending. I mean, the one with the elevator. The music is fantastic. The shots, the scenery, the cinematography, the entire world was just majestic and magical. Brilliant, brilliant film, Blade Runner. So influential, wasn't it? You know, we're talking about Cyber was asking about influential film directors, and I said Kubrick, but you know, the more I think of Blade Runner, the more I realize how it inspired tech noir and a lot of the anime stuff that the Japanese make. So much of it is based on Blade Runner, like Akira, for example. Steve says, Criminal 2016, good movie with Kevin Costner, Gary Oldman, Tommy Lee Jones, Ryan Reynolds, Gal Gadot, Scott Adkins, and Robert Davi. A lot of big names in it. I heard about that briefly. I kind of followed it a little bit because I saw that Gary Oldman was in it. But then it just got rinsed in reviews, didn't it? It was getting such shit reviews, and then it just kind of faded away. I stopped kind of following it. But I mean, if you say it's worth watching, I might check it out. I might have to do that. Yeah, Alex, Eastern Promises. That's the film I was thinking of. Good movie. I heard that Cronenberg wanted to make two more. There was supposed to be a trilogy of it, and they were going to go after the law of the Russian mob and all that kind of stuff, explore that more deeply. But apparently, Cronenberg can't really get funding for his films these days, unfortunately. That's pretty sad, isn't it? Alex K says the Duelist pretty much looks like Barry Lyndon. Gotta see it. Yeah, in a way, yeah, because I think it's probably set during the same time period. I can't remember if 100%, but a lot of the things you love about Barry Lyndon are present in the Duelist. For example, obviously duels for starters, and beef between certain individuals is very similar. The way it's shot is really good. I mean, very few films can be comparable to Barry Lyndon. I'm not going to compare it to Barry Lyndon, but The Duelist is a really good shot film. Harvey Keitel's in it, by the way, if you guys don't know. I mean, a lot of gangster movie fans on this chat. Harvey Keitel, great gangster movie actor. He was in The Duelist as well. He gives a good performance. I really enjoy that film. I think it's very, very good. And I would highly recommend it to anybody who hasn't seen it. Snaggled Tooth says, so you love Once Upon a Time in America? Yes, I do. 10 out of 10 for me. I loved it. Snaggled Tooth says, I'm not a big fan of spaghetti westerns. Close-ups of mouth chewing. Mate, you just stabbed me in the heart, Snaggle. My favourite film genre, spaghetti westerns, and you've just stabbed me in the heart saying you don't like it. I mean, I can see why. They're quite taste. I'd say, because obviously, those who like spaghetti westerns acknowledge that and kind of run with certain things that would usually irritate you. Like, for example, when you're watching a spaghetti western, a lot of the times what the character is saying doesn't match with his lips, with his mouth, because obviously the dialogue is dubbed. So there's loads of other things that you kind of just have to run with if you're going to enjoy it. But I mean, I love spaghetti westerns. I've always loved them ever since I watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which was the film that kind of showed me how good movies could be. Mr. Red says Eastern Promises could have been like the Russian mafia version of the Godfather trilogy. Yeah, there's not enough movies made about the Russian mafia. There's so much focus on the Italian American mafia that but there's a lot of potential. I mean, Yakuza, for example, the Japanese ones, the Russian mob. There's so much that could be explored that just isn't really on screen. It's just real shame that Eastern Promises never got a sequel. Where are we? Because there's a lot of people talking, and sometimes I lose where I am in the chat. Steve says in Copland, Tony Sirico is only shown in a picture. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird because there's a lot of people who are in mob movies that are in that film very briefly. Phil Leotardo, not Phil Leotardo. Why did I call him Phil Leotardo? Frank Vincent, who played Phil Leotardo in The Sopranos, he's in it for literally just a few seconds. He plays some kind of mayor, doesn't he? He pops up on the TV, and then he has a really short scene with someone, and then that's just about it. And that was made in 1997, so he had already done Goodfellas and Casino, and you would expect him to be in the film more. But yeah, again, Tony Sirico, who, I mean, I can see it, I guess, because he hadn't been on The Sopranos yet, and he was clearly in and amongst the mob crowd at that time. Obviously, former gangster. He was in Goodfellas, so I can see that, I guess. Cyborg says, I wish to become a director after my studies. Funnily enough, one of the first movies I wrote was about the Hollywood New Wave and how they started making films. My movie would have been focused on the five. The five what, sorry? But yeah, man, go for it. There's never been a better time to make movies than now, I would say. It's difficult for these guys at the top in Hollywood to get this stuff financed, yeah, but literally today you can grab a camera, grab a crew, and just start filming away. Daniel Cardiff says Unforgiven is my all-time favorite westerns. I feel it needs a remake. Maybe Coen Brothers. Really? Um, Man, I can't see that film being remade. Because part of what I love about Unforgiven, and I love it by the way, is that Unforgiven is a kind of curtain closer for not just westerns as a whole, which did seem to die off after Unforgiven. Obviously, we had a kind of resurgence in the mid 2000s, but it was specifically for Clint Eastwood, who obviously never made a western again. And it was a kind of breaking down of the kind of characters he usually plays, you know, the archetypal kind of man with no name, the mysterious gunslinger, macho, all successful in the end. And it kind of broke that character down. And I thought The Irishman did something very similar with the archetypal mobster with Frank Sheeran. But I can't see Unforgiven being remade because part of the reason why it works is because of Clint Eastwood. It's literally a movie made for his career, if that makes sense. So yeah, I would not like to see an announcement. I would not want to wake up to see an announcement to see that Unforgiven has been remade. I'll be very upset about that. Mr. Red says, have you seen the original spaghetti western Django from the mid-60s? Yeah, I have. Good film. Brilliant soundtrack. And so tell you what, I actually guessed what was in the coffin. So basically, for those who haven't seen it, the original Django is a spaghetti western made in the late 60s, or yeah, I think it was 68, I think it was 1968. And this mysterious gunslinger Django, he carries around a coffin, he drags around a coffin with him, and people are always wondering what's in the coffin. Is it a dead body or what? And I knew what was in it. I won't say it because you know, in case some of you guys want to watch it, but there's a brilliant scene that happens when he takes out what was in the coffin. But yeah, I have seen it, Mr. Red. I thought it was good. I preferred it to Tarantino's. Michael's asking, have you read Five Families? It's one of the most comprehensive history of the mafia. Very long though. No, I haven't. I have heard of it, and one of the reasons why I haven't ordered it yet is because of the length. There's a few other books I want to get out of the way before I start reading Five Families, because I mean, like you said, I've heard it's very long, but very good as well. Snaggled Tooth says The Duelist was Ridley's first film. He did it for free just to get it finished. I didn't know he did it for free. That's pretty cool. I guess a lot of these filmmakers, they made sacrifices at the beginning of their careers, didn't they, to kind of push through and get their name out there. The Duelist though is a brilliant film. Love it. Alex K says, I recently loved it. Great closure of John Wayne's brilliant career. Yeah, that's another one. I haven't actually seen it, but it's kind of in that vein of The Irishman and Unforgiven, isn't it? In that it's a kind of curtain closer, not just to a genre, but to a specific actor's career. Steve says Tony Sirico's first big role was Backtrace as Joe Pesci's main soldier. Yeah, still not seen that one. I think it was you, wasn't it, that was recommending it to me last week. Have you seen To Live and Die in LA? Asks the oncoming storm. Directed by William Friedkin. It's my all-time favorite crime thriller. It has one of the greatest car chases ever put to film. I haven't, no. But wow, that's interesting you say that. It's got the greatest because obviously Friedkin did The French Connection, didn't it? Didn't he? And I thought that had one of the greatest car chases I've ever seen. You know, when he's chasing the train. So if this one also, I didn't know this one had a car chase in it. I love car chases in films. I'm gonna check that out. Snaggletooth. Oh, another stab in the heart, Snaggle. Sorry, I was raised on Hollywood westerns, but always found Clint Eastwood overrated. Damn, man. Come on, not even a little bit of love for the Dollars trilogy for a few dollars more. Good, the Bad, the Ugly, Tuco, Angel Eyes. Come on, man. Oncoming Storm continues. It also has great cinematography and a fantastic soundtrack. It felt realistic and was very unpredictable until the very end. Man, you sold me. You know that. You should be here reviewing films, not me. That's a great little review you've done there to sell the film to me. Daniel says best to leave Unforgiven alone. I mean, I agree. You know. Snaggletooth has done a bit of research. At its peak, the Italian American Mafia had 4,000 members out of 40 million Italian Americans. No wonder they're pissed at being associated with violent crimes. Yeah, we see this all the time, isn't it? You know, Irish people being called terrorists and bombers when such a small percentage were IRA. You get the same thing with Muslims and Asians, you know, bombers, terrorists, all that kind of stuff. Again, such a small percentage of them actually are. It's a shame the way um, people are stigmatized and stereotypes have developed from media, social media, and obviously film kind of media. I mean, but I have to hold my hands up and say, as a person who loves gangster films and watches gangster films, I'm obviously part of that. You know, by supporting films like The Godfather, supporting films like Goodfellas, I guess you could say that you're part of that cycle, but part of that chain. Not 100% though, because obviously these gangster films don't claim that all Italian Americans are criminals. But obviously, if you've watched a huge amount of, like say for example, I'm from UK, yeah. I've seen so many gangster films. If I go to New York, if I go to Little Italy or something, and first person that comes to me and talks to me, and he talks with an accent that I recognize from the movies, I'm probably going to think, all right, this guy's got a bit of connections, he's probably got a bit of drugs, or he's probably got a baseball bat in the back of his car. You know, do you get what I mean? And obviously that's the wrong thing, definitely the wrong thing to be thinking. But I can see it happening, and I can see why so many Italian Americans will be upset that they're portrayed as gangsters all the time. Steve says Daredevil is a gritty superhero show which focuses on the Russian mob, Chinese triads, and Yakuza. Oh, wow. That is interesting. Vince D'Onofrio does a terrifying performance as Italian mob boss Wilson Fisk. So Wilson Fisk is Italian, is he? In Daredevil. See, there's two Netflix shows that have been recommended to me a lot, and I do want to watch them. So there's Daredevil, the one that you've just mentioned, and the other one is Punisher. I've heard a lot about those two. Apparently, they're supposed to be adult orientated, and yeah, I mean, I don't like watching more than one TV show at once, so I'm trying to finish the one I'm on now, and then I'm gonna choose which one I'll watch next. So I did The Sopranos, I did Game of Thrones, I did Boardwalk Empire, I did the first season of The Boys. I'm currently on Ertugrul, Resurrection Ertugrul, which is so long. It's amazing, but it's so long. Season 2 was 120 episodes, man. And that was like each about 45 minutes. Season 3 is 90, and I'm midway through that. So yeah, once I finish that, I'm probably gonna start another one. Maybe Breaking Bad or Punisher. Who knows, man? What you guys recommend me one? Which TV show do you think I should watch? I've heard a lot of recommendations for mafia ones, like Gomorrah, for example. Another one I haven't checked out. I'll tell you what I want to watch. Have any of you guys heard of this TV show, an Italian TV show called The Octopus? I think it started in 1984. It's called La Piovra in the original language. It came to my attention because Ennio Morricone does the music starting from season 2, and I've heard some of the music online and I thought it was quite good. And then I saw that it was a TV show based on the mafia. People have seen it and reviewed it. Many of them say that it's better than Sopranos. It's the best mafia TV show ever made. And I've actually got it. I have not watched it yet, but that's one that I want to start. I'll probably watch that one next, to be honest. Obviously, people on my channel, people subscribe to me, will obviously be interested in that. I'm interested in it, so it's a win-win. Cyborg has continued what his movie is going to be about. So he says, sorry, I meant the big 5 directors from the new wave: Spielberg, Coppola, Lucas, De Palma, and Scorsese. The movie would showcase the making of Jaws, Taxi Driver, Star Wars, and a bunch of other films. That'd be cool, man. That'd be very, very cool. Michael's asking, if you play video games, have you played any of the Mafia series games, like the new Mafia Definitive Edition? No, I haven't. No. I've heard a lot about them, and when I saw that the new one was coming out, the remake, I really wanted to buy that and play it because I never got to play the originals. But with me, it's time. I can't find the time to play video games, movies, even movie. Funnily enough, for such a huge film fan, I don't actually watch that many films nowadays because I just don't have the time. Occasionally, I get a couple of hours when I'm free by myself, or I'll be up in bed in the middle of the night watching a movie on my phone. But it's not like reading a book where you can do it on a train journey or on the passenger seat of a car. A video game takes a lot more commitment, and it takes a lot more time, obviously, because a decent video game will take you maybe 20 hours in the story. But yeah, that I would like to check out the Mafia games, but I don't see it happening for me anytime soon. Celtics asking him what I think of Tartovsky's works. I think Stalker and Solaris are masterpieces. I've not seen either of those two. I've only seen one of his films, Ivan's Childhood. That's the only one I've seen. I thought that was good. It was interesting, intriguing, very very well shot. But yeah, that's a filmmaker that I haven't seen much of. I do need to take a dive into his filmography. I've heard a lot about Stalker and Solaris. Alex Burr says a western called Hostiles is on Netflix and it stars Christian Bale. It's the newest western I've seen. Came out in December of 2017. Funny that you say that. I watched that for the first time a couple of weeks ago. I've finished my review of it. I haven't released my review. I think my review is coming out next month. I thought it was quite good. I thought it dropped off though. I thought it started incredibly. It has an amazing opening scene, but the rest of the film never really lives up to the opening scene. It becomes a different kind of film, but it was okay. I think. If I remember correctly, I rated it a 7 out of 10. My favorite car chase is from Bullet, says Alex K. Is that the one where they're in San Francisco and they're going down that road that has loads of it has kind of like a jagged edge and they keep bumping the cars as they go down. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think it is that. I've seen that. That's Steve McQueen, isn't it? Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah, I agree with you. Brilliant car chase. My favorite would probably be there's quite a lot, isn't there? I've mentioned French Connection. Ronin has some good car chases in it. A 1998 film starring Robert De Niro. There's two in there that are really good. There's a recent Tom Cruise film called Jack Reacher that had one car chase scene that I thought was quite good. I'm just trying to think. There's a lot, I recently watched a film called The Driver, made by Walter Hill in 1978. That had a good car chase in it as well. So yeah, there's quite a lot, Mr. Red says Ray Liotta called Clint Eastwood overrated one time in an interview. I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by overrated, because we were talking about his westerns a couple of minutes ago. As an actor, I mean, is he highly rated as an actor? I don't think anybody really rates him as an actor. He's pretty one note, isn't he? So, yeah, there's that. As a director, I think he's hit and miss, but he's made some amazing films. When I say hit and miss, I'm really talking about recently. But then again, the guy's 90 years old, so, who else can be making films as consistently as he's been doing at the age of 90? So I think I'm being a bit too harsh on him there. But I guess it depends on what you mean, actor or director. As a director, he's made some brilliant films. As an actor, he kind of found his thing, his niche, and he went with it. So, yeah, man. He hasn't really tried to go out of his bubble, I don't think, as an actor. Where are we? True Harm is nice to have you on, True Harm. True Harm's asking the worst gangster film you've ever seen. So off the top of my head, I would say John Travolta's Gotti, because I've seen films that are probably technically worse. Like I saw a film called what was it called? Yeah, Mobtown, made very recently, 2019, I think it was. And as I mentioned in my review, I thought it was hilariously bad. But the key word being hilarious, as in I found it funny. You know, as I mentioned before, the worst sin a film can commit, in my opinion, is being boring. And if a film is bad, but it's hilariously bad, or it's so bad it's good, there's actually enjoyment there. Gotti with John Travolta was just boring, you know. Even Tom Hardy's Capone film had that scene where he shits himself, which I find hilarious. So, yeah, off the top of my head, I would say Gotti. I can't really think of another film that is worse than that. I recently watched and reviewed a film called Chicago Overcoat with Frank Vincent, which technically was not a very good film, but I did actually enjoy that. So, yeah, my pick would be Gotti, I think. Cyborgs asked another difficult question. Serious question: if you had to erase John Ford's Western films or Akira Kurosawa's samurai films, that is difficult, but it's more easier than the last question you asked, because for me, Akira Kurosawa's samurai films are just, they're the peak of cinema. Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, Sanjuro, Hidden Fortress, and the other one, the one that he made about Macbeth, which I'm gonna count as a samurai film. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, I would pick John Ford to have his filmography erased. To be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the American westerns. The spaghetti westerns is where it's at. When I grew up with spaghetti westerns, and then when I kind of started watching American ones, it was a big transition. They were a lot more slower, a lot of them are a lot more boring, and it took a while for me to really appreciate them. But even still, Akira Kurosawa, when you get him and samurais is a perfect match. Cinema doesn't get better than that. Mr. Red says, have you seen Silent Tongue? It's a rare art house western starring the late great River Phoenix. It was one of River Phoenix's last films that was released. I haven't, no. I've never heard of that, I don't think. Five Families is 33 hours and 54 minutes long on Audible. First book free, and you can cancel, says Snaggles Tooth. I don't think I've ever read a film on Audible, or read an audiobook. I've always read them. I think it's better to read them if you have the time, obviously. If you're in a car or something, audiobooks are very handy. But I think your brain gets a lot more. It's fed a lot more, if that makes sense, when you're reading as opposed to just listening. Steve says Borat 2 is coming out soon. The trailer looks funny. I haven't seen the trailer. I didn't watch the first one. I know it's something of a modern day cult classic, but I never actually got around to seeing it. There's another one, isn't it, that he did? Bruno. Yeah. I've not seen either of them. Daniel says, I rarely have time to watch movies. I've got such a huge list. It's almost like a workout, and I hate exercise. Yeah, I understand what you mean, because I started to really properly get into films when I was a teenager. And even though, you had school and other stuff, that was the time in my life where I had more time for films. And I also had more, ability to watch films. Because now when I watch a film late at night, I fall asleep. I find it hard to stay awake. So, back in the days, I could watch 2-3 films a day. And I would always watch whatever I can, experimental films, art house films, films from countries I'd never heard of, things like that. But now I'm quite picky because I don't have a lot of time. I think this happens as you get older, And it's weird to say that during the COVID lockdown that I don't have time, but really even now, when you've got family and stuff like that, things get in the way, and I'm at a place where I don't watch as much movies as I would like to. I've been reading a lot because I've found more opportunities to read. Because with movies, uh, I get really irritated at distractions. You know, when I watch a movie, I don't like there to be people talking, there to be a lot of noise, that kind of stuff. So the environment has to be proper for me, which obviously is not the case. It's not possible always when obviously you've got kids running around, that kind of stuff. Obviously, a book, on the other hand, you can just sit in the corner and read. So Martin Scorsese has joined the chat. Hi, my good friend. We're honoured with your presence, Scorsese. Thank you very much. Mr. Reza has another recommendation. Check out River Phoenix's Dark Blood. It was the last film of River Phoenix ever made. You can find it on YouTube. It was officially, but full. I'm losing my ability to talk, lads. Finally released in 2012 due to a hold and almost thrown in the fire. Thanks for the recommendation, Mr. Red. Snaggletooth says, I'm just watching the second season of The Boys. It's as good as the first. That's great news, Snaggle. I was asking a few other people I know whether it was good or not. Because I liked the first season. I reviewed it as well. I thought it was quite good. And I'm looking forward to the second. Cyborg says, if you haven't watched it yet, you absolutely need to watch Breaking Bad. The qualities of the show are endless. Writing, cinematography, acting, action, and drama. Bryan Cranston's acting is outstanding. Yeah, man, everybody says that to me. You know, I get people. It's kind of funny because you know I watch a lot of movies. I know a lot about movies, and then people say to me, "You haven't seen Breaking Bad? Get on it right now." It's just time, you know. I am definitely gonna check it out. Definitely. Alex K says The Driver is a great movie, very minimalistic. Yeah, I think in my review, which I've not released yet, I think that's one of the words I used to describe it. It is very minimalistic, isn't it? It's actually kind of hilarious because you never even know anybody's names in the film. It's just the driver, the detective, all that kind of stuff. Very basic, very stripped out, but that's part of the reason why it's such a great film. Okay, Mr. Red, I'll take your advice into consideration. So Mr. Red has said if you do watch Dark Blood, don't judge it so harshly because it was 75% made and put on hold due to the passing of River Phoenix, but is brilliantly constructed with the narrative of the director. Snaggletooth has got his sword out again. Films on your phone, Cine Ranter. That's all wrong, man. You love movies. Allow them to love you back from a home cinema system. I would love to snaggle, mate. I'm in the same boat as you. I would love to watch movies on a home cinema system or on the big screen, but you know we live in the real world. You know, not the perfect world. And in the real world, you have to make compromises. You know, I can't watch films on my TV a lot because, like I mentioned, the distractions. The only way I can get a really good film experience, and I know this sounds like blasphemy, but it's on my phone. Most of the times, I reserve my phone for kind of fluff movies, you know, like generic action films or just you know 5 out of 10 dramas, that kind of stuff. The films that I'm really looking forward to, I usually watch on TV. So yeah, Snaggletooth. I know that sounds like blasphemy coming as a film fan, and I know it is, but you know you have to do what you have to do. It's either that or I stop watching films. Daniel says, to be honest, his best acting job is Unforgiven. He's usually gritty and stern, and he is in Unforgiven too, but he has a lot of depth with his fear and disgust and his past and himself. Yeah, he was brilliant, man. Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven. A great performance and a great film. Gene Hackman, he was in it as well, wasn't he? He gave a really good performance as well. Mr. Red says, I don't think Clint Eastwood is a bad actor. I think he's pretty solid. David says, favorite Godzilla movie. I've only seen the original. I've seen the 1998 one, and I saw that one made in 2014. So yeah, I'm not really an expert on the Zilla films. Out of those three, it, I mean, the original is obviously a classic. It might not really hold up as well today. Obviously, it was about the Hiroshima bomb. It was a metaphor for that. So I think on that basis, it's probably the best. I didn't like the recent one. I thought it was kind of boring. I thought the monster didn't look good. I know a lot of people are gonna hate me for this, but I kind of grew up with the 1998 one. It was a childhood film for me, so I've got a lot of nostalgic love for that film, to be honest. Thoughts on Damien Chazelle? Says Cyborg, director of Whiplash, La La Land, and First Man. I've not seen any of his films. I've been trying to watch Whiplash for ages. I noticed that La La Land was it on Netflix? No, I think I recorded it on TV. Yeah, so yeah, I've not seen any of his films, to be honest. Snaggletooth says Ronin's underrated. Cruise is being replaced in Reach's films. Yeah, because the second one was not highly received, was it? And Tom Cruise doesn't really do sequels, does he? Apart from Mission Impossible, and I'm guessing the poor reception to that one has put him off. Plus, I know a lot of people who are book fans of the Jack Reacher universe. They can't stand Tom Cruise being cast in the role because they said he's too short. Daniel says I've only listened to 1984 Audible, and I'm not going to do Audible again. Prefer reading. Same here, I think. And I say I think because I never actually read a book on Audible, but I have listened to obviously podcast, had headphones in my ears, listening to YouTube documentary stuff like that. But when it comes to an actual book, I just feel it's more intimate, it's more personal when it's just you and the book as opposed to the narrator, the third party. Oh, I can see I'm really behind in the chat. There's a lot. I mean, we've had a good turnout today. I see that the most concurrent viewers was something like 20, 25, which is the peak of all of my live streams, I think. So yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Right. Sometimes it's hard because when I'm talking, the chat is continuing to move and I lose it sometimes. So just give me a second here. Where are we? Kurosawa's Seven Samurai is the zenith of cinema, says Snaggletooth. Now you're stabbing me in the heart. Yeah, man. I'm sorry, man. I don't want to be watching films on my phone, but I'm going to be honest and say I do. You can actually watch To Live and Die in LA for free on YouTube, says the oncoming storm. Cool. The Driver is a great film, Mr. Red says, inspired by another film, Drive. Go figure with a similar title. I mean, I guess you mean it inspired Drive because obviously Drive was made in what, 2008, I think. Yeah, you can definitely see the similarities between the two films. Both of them are good films. Daniel says I've watched most of my favorite movies and shows on my phone. I watched Breaking Bad entirely on my phone. Yeah, I mean, I see. If let's say we lived in a perfect world. In a perfect world, I would go into this room that had loads of chairs. It had a huge screen at the front, brilliant sound speakers. The room would go dim. I turn it on, and I'd watch a movie from beginning to end, and there would be no disturbances. My mates, my family could come along and join, or I'd be watching on my own. That's the perfect world. The real world I live in involves me turning on the TV to watch a film, and then uh, me needing to go and do something for my job, my work, or my kids coming and screaming in the room. You know, do you get what I'm saying? So I would love to be in a situation where I could watch movies as I feel they should be watched. But I'm gonna hold my hands up and say I probably have seen more films on my phone than I have in cinema, on TV, on the computer, on the laptop. Yeah, I'm serious, man. You know, I can't lie. Cyborg says, "What do you define as great acting? To me, great acting is the moment I forget the person I'm watching is acting, and I totally believe the emotion, almost like fiction becoming reality." That's a really good description, to be honest. Um, I think a lot of people can act good without ever getting to that stage that you're talking about, because that is, what you might call, the summit of acting, the peak of acting, where you literally forget the actors are acting. That is a very good um, description. I don't really think I need to add anything to that. Daniel says the first Jack Reacher is pretty good, but the sequel is pretty crap. Yeah, I like the first. I never watched the second because of the reception it had. Snaggletooth says, "You haven't watched Breaking Bad? So you've not have seen Better Call Saul? I'm so jealous. I wish I could enjoy them for the first time again." You guys are really hyping me up, man, for Breaking Bad. I'm really looking forward to it. Alright, so Scorsese is leaving the chat. He needs to go and work on Killers of the Flower Moon. Bye bye, Mr. Scorsese. Snaggletooth says, "Very true. I'm guessing 90% of the time your TV is being used Sesame Street style kids stuff. Kids come first once you have them." Yeah, I mean, I think for me, when I got married, that was when my ratio of watching films per week dropped significantly, and it only went lower once I had kids. I mean, I'm not saying I don't want kids or nothing. I'm just saying, I wouldn't swap my kids and my wife or anything, but definitely I've been watching less films because obviously you get busy, don't you? And I've got a family. I've got a full-time job. I've got up until very recently I had two part-time jobs in addition to the YouTube. With YouTube, and YouTube takes up a lot of time. I think I've spent more time making videos about movies than actually watching the films themselves. I get a lot of people on the live streams every week recommending me films, and then I never actually end up watching them in that week because I'm spending time making videos on films. So yeah, I suppose it's silly though. I suppose I should be fine because obviously with the lockdown, COVID, and all that, if there's any time to be watching films, it's now. Because I'm doing reduced hours at my workplace, so maybe I'm just lazy. I don't know. Anyway, where are we? Erase one of these actors from cinema. Kurt Russell, Harrison Ford, Christopher Walken, or Sylvester Stallone. That's an interesting set of actors you put there. You lose Harrison Ford, you lose Indiana Jones, you lose Blade Runner. But Kurt Russell is one of my low-key favorite actors. I loved his works with John Carpenter. That's difficult, But you say erase one of them. I will probably say Christopher Walken. It pains me to say it, but I think I could sacrifice his filmography and him over everybody else. Maybe Stallone, but Stallone's action films are awesome, and then there's the Rocky films, Rambo, a couple of dramas he's done like Copland. Yeah, I think Christopher Walken is the one I'd etch. The Oncoming Storm says, "Have you seen any films directed by the Safdie brothers?" especially Good Time, and Uncut Gems. They're both fantastic, especially Good Time, which I consider to be a modern masterpiece. I do want to watch Good Time because I want to watch it because I've heard people raving about Robert Pattinson's performance, who I think is a really good actor. I haven't seen that. I did watch Uncut Gems though. Um, I have reviewed it. I don't think I've released the review yet. No, I haven't. Yeah, I remember now. I have seen it. I thought it was good. Yeah, stressful but good. Daniel Cardiff says, I remember a quote from a director where he said, his one wish would be to watch his favorite movie for the first time again. I wish the same for all my favorite movies and TV shows. Yeah, you never really get that same feeding back, do you? That same initial experience. First impressions are everything, as they say. That's one of the reasons why I only review films I watch for the first time on my YouTube channel. Um, for films that I've already seen, I do something called retro reviews. I've only done two, Hoffer and Copland so far. But I like to capture my initial thoughts on a film because I think even if you change your opinion, the initial thoughts are always interesting. And if you watch a film that just, you completely fall in love with, you never get that feeling back. No matter how many times you rewatch the film, or how many times you love the film. For me, Godfather, Goodfellas, Once Upon a Time in the West, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, Aliens, those are my favorite films. You just never really can get that. Even video games, Red Dead Redemption 2, a great video game, my favorite of all time. You want to erase it from your memory so you can go back and play it again. Cyborg says, like you say, it's hard to commit. I try to watch as many films as I can in theatre. Yeah, man, I'd love to. Another problem I had that I didn't mention was that, the town I live in, our cinema's not great, and I have to travel quite a fair distance to find a decent cinema. I mean that in terms of the kind of films they're showing and the quality of the cinema itself. Because my local just kind of shows the latest Disney films, Star Wars and Transformers and superhero films and all the kind of things that I'm not really interested in. Steve says Harvey Keitel plays an excellent performance in Bugsy. He should have got an Oscar for it. I've got my review of Bugsy coming out soon. It's funny you should say that, Steve. See, Keitel was nominated for an Oscar for Bugsy, and so was Ben Kingsley. And you're not going to like this, but one of the things I mentioned in my review is that I could not fathom why those two guys were nominated for Oscars. I mean, I love them. I think they're both great actors, but I thought they were quite ordinary in the films. Ben Kingsley isn't in the film that much, and he kind of pops up and talks, and that's it. Harvey Keitel, it's the only film he was ever nominated for an Oscar for, which is ridiculous. He's made so many great films. I mean, have the Academy not even seen Bad Lieutenant? It boggles my mind that all the films he's done, the one that he was nominated for an Oscar for was Bugsy, where he didn't really do much, to be honest. In my opinion, of course. Steve says there's a new Adam Sandler movie coming out on Netflix called Hubie Halloween, with Steve Buscemi, David Spade, Kevin James, Ray Liotta, and Michael Chiklis. Is this a comedy? 'Cause, it sounds like it. It sounds like the old Sandler crowd. I don't really like Sandler's comedies. I'm saying that, to be honest. I've only seen Jack and Jill, and that put me off everything Adam Sandler does. I think the only one I saw that he made after that was obviously Uncut Gems. Snaggle Toothhead says, good night, it's nearly 1 a.m. and I'm working in the morning. Good talk, guys. I'll see you later, man. You asked some good questions, good discussions. Thanks a lot. So you're UK as well, are you? Because it's 1 a.m. here as well. But yeah, Snaggle Tooth, nice discussions. Nice to have you on. I'm probably going to be finishing up anyway soon, because I can't believe it's been nearly 2 hours already. hi, Louis. Um, he's asking, what do you think about Stanley Kubrick's movies? Oh, I love his films. From the ones I've seen most of them. I think Leota is it? Lolita. I've not seen that one. And what else was there? I think that's it. The rest of them I've seen, and yeah, just an incredible filmography. My favorites being 2001, Barry Lyndon, and A Clockwork Orange. But then again, there's also The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, Spartacus. There's that noir film he made, The Killing something. I can't remember what it was called. Eyes Wide Shut is another great film. So yeah, I mean his films are just magical, aren't they? Cyborg Bushin is asking your favorite soundtrack from The Sopranos. Uh, Cyborg, you just read my mind. He said mine is the rap song Paparazzi by Exhibit during Junior's celebration party. It gives you a sense of dread and terror when the FBI is revealed to be in it. Yeah, same here. I didn't really get a sense of terror and dread. I just found it so cool. You know, it was such a good beat, and then the scene was edited brilliantly with the FBI agent pretending to be a waiter, and then when it shows them changing the photos, and it was as a brilliant setup for the the next season. You know, to kind of it's basically like a passing of the baton kind of thing, isn't it? It's like we've moved on now from the old era of what was his name, Jackie's reign, and now it's Junior's reign. But even then, the series kind of throws a little thing out there by uh, there's a lot of little subtleties in this scene. Like for example, Tony standing up and Junior sitting down. You know, it symbolically shows that even though technically Junior is boss, Tony is still above him. He's the real man here. And then you see that Corrado is put at the top, and they cross out Capo and they put boss there, but they don't give him a new card. They just cross out the old thing where it says what do you call it, Capo, which to me kind of symbolizes that he's not the real boss, he's a de facto boss. But that's a brilliant scene, and the use of music there was brilliant. I agree with you, Sabang, my favorite in the movie. Another question, have you? John Marston or Arthur Morgan? Oh, that's difficult. That is difficult. I mean, I guess it'd have to be Arthur. You know, I don't think I've ever played a video game where you have a character as introspective and fully realized as him. He felt like a real person. I love John Marston, but just what you experience with Arthur in Red Dead 2, nothing can compare, you know? Steve says Harvey Keitel should have gotten an Oscar for his other movies like Reservoir Dogs, Bad Lieutenant, and Pulp Fiction. Yeah, there's loads of films that he should have been recognized for. And then you look at what he's been nominated for, and there's just one film there, Bugsy. It's ridiculous. You know, even there was a film he did with Scorsese called Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. I thought he was really good in that as well. But for some reason, the Academy has just never really recognized him. Right, where are we? Cyborg is off. Wishing you the best, my friend. Have a good night and take care. I had a lot of fun. Everyone take care. Thanks, Cyborg. I had a lot of fun as well. You asked some really interesting questions. Yeah, when we hit 2 hours, I'm probably going to close up shop. I thought this was a really interesting live chat. Some good discussions, some good questions all around. But yeah, see you later, Cyborg. I'll see you next week. Mr. Red says, will you review You Were Never Here? Oh, sorry, You Were Never Really Here, starring Joaquin Phoenix. I will do once I've seen it. I haven't actually seen it yet. That's a film that's on my list. The Louis says, did you play the Mafia game, the original one from 2002? No, I haven't. We were talking about this on the chat. I've not played any of them. I do want to, though. Daniel says, Arthur is definitely a better look at an outlaw. Mainly is your honourable. Do you mean like playing as honourable? Yeah, but I mean, if that's the case, I agree with you. You know, Arthur works better if you play the game as an honourable character. Yeah, obviously you get the better endings as well, don't you? Steve says Joe Pesci should have got the Oscar for The Irishman instead of Brad Pitt. Yeah, I agree, man. Either Joe Pesci or Pacino. Uh, either one of those two, if they won it, that'd have been enough for me. I thought Brad Pitt was good in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but it was just Brad Pitt being Brad Pitt. There was nothing special about it. He's done a lot of performances that are better than that, like 12 Monkeys, for example. Um, I didn't really see anything special about him. I know obviously that there's a lot of politics in Hollywood, in the Oscars, and they usually give an Oscar after a string of great performances, as opposed to, you know, uh, giving the award based off that specific performance. You get that a lot. You know, even Scorsese's Oscar, many people feel that that was kind of an honorary Oscar for his entire filmography, as opposed to just for The Departed. But I really felt that Joe Pesci and Pacino was superior to uh, Brad Pitt. Even who else was nominated? Wasn't Anthony Hopkins nominated for The Two Popes? I thought he was really good as well. It was a strong year, and I thought the one person that shouldn't have won ended up winning. David's asking my worst Leonardo DiCaprio movie. Well, I haven't seen all of them. I've seen most of the big ones, and despite me not being a big fan of him himself, I think he picks really good films. J. Edgar comes to mind, his Clint Eastwood film. I thought that was pretty poor. But in general, he's really good at picking his films. I mean, pretty much he sticks with big time directors, doesn't he? I mean, look at who he's worked with: Scorsese, Spielberg, uh, Ridley Scott, James Cameron. I mean, I guess in a way you could say he plays it safe. But I mean, there's no real playing safe, even when you go with big directors. But anyway, yeah, my pick would be J. Edgar. Daniel says Pacino was awesome, but I feel De Niro deserved it. Yeah, so De Niro would have been obviously nominated for Best Actor as opposed to Best Supporting Actor. And that was a strong year too. I think Joaquin Phoenix gave a brilliant performance in The Joker, and he did deserve it, but it was a real shame that De Niro was just not recognized at all in for his performance in any of the awards. I thought he was brilliant in The Irishman, especially the second half of the film. I thought it was his best performance in about 20, 30 years. So it's a real shame he wasn't recognized. He was the only actor of the big three that wasn't recognized. Everybody else was getting nominated left, right, and center. Pacino and Pesci. I was kind of sad for De Niro, but you know, ultimately awards don't really mean anything, do they? Yes, I'm going to be that guy. He's asking best Tarantino film in your opinion. Nice to have you on, by the way. My best Tarantino film, it would be either one of the first three: Jackie Brown, Reservoir Dogs, and Pulp Fiction. Those are my three favorite Tarantino films, and the films I consider his best. Oof. Is it worth saying Jackie Brown? Because the thing is, you know, when you watch Pulp Fiction, when you rewatch it now, some scenes do drag, and that's not the film's fault. Obviously, I mean, people who watch those kind of films, you practically know the dialogue off by heart. So, and Reservoir Dogs is very similar there as well. Maybe Jackie Brown, but I mean, I don't know. Either one of those three, I would say, is Tarantino's favorite. It's my favorite of Tarantino. Sorry. Tarek says hello. Hi, Tarek. Robert De Niro is my favorite actor. I met him in 2009, and he was very nice to me. What's your favorite De Niro movie? Well, that's pretty cool, Tarek. Tarek says mine is Raging Bull. Asking what is my favorite De Niro movie is ridiculously difficult for me because he's my favorite actor, my all-time favorite actor as well. If I was to pick one, just one, oh man, that's so difficult. Goodfellas maybe, Once Upon a Time in America. Either one of those two, I'd say. But obviously I have to commit to one answer. I'll say Goodfellas, you know, because Once Upon a Time in America you kind of have to be in the mood to watch it, and it's very long, and it's a very absorbing movie. But Goodfellas is the kind of film that if it's on TV at any time, beginning, middle, or end, you can just watch it straight away. So yeah, I'll go with Goodfellas. The Lurie says De Niro dominated the Oscar nominations in the 80s and 90s, if I remember correctly. So many good and different performances. Yeah, I mean, this guy's one of the best actors of all time, no question. Alex K says, I watched Suspiria yesterday for the first time. What a horror trip. What do you think about it? The original. I love it, man. I really like Suspiria. I was getting into horror by watching John Carpenter's films, and then I discovered Mario Bava, and then I discovered Dario Argento by watching Suspiria, and I was mesmerized. Story is generic, but you're not going to watch it for the story. Acting is so, but the colors, the visuals, the music, it was a real experience, wasn't it? And then I just went ahead and watched Inferno, which I thought was really weird and really cool, Deep Red, and a lot of his other films. But I really liked Suspiria, the original. Remake, not so much. I reviewed that on the channel if you're interested. But the original Suspiria is a fantastic film. I love it. The Oncoming Storm says, have you seen Strange Days? It's one of the most underrated films, and I'm surprised no one talks about it. The action scenes are thrilling, and the cyberpunk setting is awesome. The opening scene of the film is an incredible one-take action scene in first person. It felt like a video game. It also has one of the most disturbing scenes I've ever seen, a forgotten cult classic. I haven't seen that, no. Let me just check it out on IMDb. Here we are, Strange Days. So it's not even on my watch list, meaning I've probably never heard of it. Oh, Catherine Bigelow directed it. It says a former cop turned street hustler accidentally uncovers a conspiracy in Los Angeles in 1999. Well, I'll try and check that out. Thank you very much for the recommendation, The Oncoming Storm. David says, I think The Irishman should have won Best Visual Effects. I'm not sure. I don't remember what it was up against. Wasn't it up against like one of those Avengers films or something? But yeah, I mean, it was definitely something that had never been done before, not on that scale at least. I think maybe some of the scenes early in the film, like with De Niro in the truck, kind of let the film down, and maybe that's one of the reasons why it didn't win. But the de-aging CGI is very underrated in The Irishman, because there's a lot there that you don't notice because it's so good, if that makes sense. Like, a lot of people don't even realize that Al Pacino was de-aged throughout the entire film. So even near the end, when you see him during Frank Sheeran Appreciation Night, when he's by the lake, when he's in the car, he's de-aged all throughout. But most people don't realize that's how good the de-aging CGI is. Obviously it has hokey moments here and there, but I think, yeah, it should have got an award as well. Steve's asking, did they put CGI on Harvey Keitel in the flashback scene? He looks like Mr. Wolf in Pulp Fiction in that scene. Are you talking about The Irishman? I think maybe they might have touched him up. Harvey Keitel. It's possible. Yeah, I think there might have been a bit of cheeky, sneaky de-aging CGI on Harvey Keitel in his scene with when he's in the younger Frank Sheeran days. It's very much possible. He did look different, didn't he? But I didn't notice it. So if they did, it was a swell job. Daniel Cardiff says Suspiria remake did have a pretty disturbing scene. Yeah, that one where the girl is dancing was a brilliant scene. But I mean, I thought the film was well shot. I liked the tone, the eerie atmosphere. It felt like The Exorcist. It felt like a 1970s horror film. And I'm probably underselling it, but there were a few problems I had with it. First of all, I thought the ending was a bit over the top. It kind of lost its pull, its effect, because it just kind of went all gory and it was trying to kind of show off, if that makes sense. I thought it was just it overdid it. And also, there was a lack of mystery to it, because in the original Suspiria, you don't know what's going on, and you find out in the end. Whereas in this one, they literally tell you from the off that, oh, there's witches and all this kind of stuff, so they give it away too early, which I found kind of bizarre. It was okay, you know. I think I rated it a 7 out of 10. So I didn't think too badly of it. But that scene you're talking about was brilliant, yeah. Thank you for those live streams, mate. Have a nice Sunday, says the Lurie89. Well, thank you, mate, for joining and pumping the discussion with blood. Pumping the discussion with blood? What? That didn't come out right. You know what I mean. You guys know that I sometimes get tongue twisted and I get a lot of brain farts when I'm doing live streams. So we've got a lot of other people talking about it. Strange Days. Tariq, Mr. Red. Yeah, definitely a film I need to check out. I've never heard of this film, I don't think. So yeah, thank you guys for that recommendation. Excellent performance from Al Pacino in The Irishman. His best performance in a while, says Mr. Red. Definitely. I cannot believe he was almost 80 when they filmed that. He had so much energy, so much, and his expressions as well. Because, you know, old people can't, in general, are not as expressive as young people, but that scene with Joe Pesci, he went through like 10 different emotions in that film, in that scene, sorry. And then the subsequent one with De Niro, there's a part where De Niro tells him that, you know, Tony told the old man to tell you it's what it is. And Pacino's expression there, that little 5 seconds where it goes through his head, there's a hint of fear, like he suddenly realized how deep he's in it. And then kind of an incredible, like, he makes his face like, what? Like, and then obviously he says that they wouldn't dare, that kind of pseudo-masculine, doing away with the danger that he's potentially in. And you know, he was amazing in the film. I really like Pacino in The Irishman. Tarek has another Bigelow recommendation called Near Dark. Yeah, I've only seen one of the films, I think. No, two. I saw The Hurt Locker, which I wasn't really a fan of, and I saw, oh man, what's it called? You know the surfer movie with Keanu Reeves? The one that was remade recently. I saw that one. That one was a good film. David says, do you think Forrest Gump deserved Best Picture more than Pulp Fiction and Shawshank Redemption? I think either of those three films could have won it. Yeah, I think either of those three films have what it took to win Best Picture. Point Break, yeah, that's the one I was thinking of, Mr. Red. Sorry, it's very late in the day. I think my eyes are going. Filmologia says, I personally think De Niro's best acted performance is Awakenings. It was such a huge transformation acting-wise. Thoughts? I was blown away when I watched Awakenings. So first of all, I really liked Robin Williams' performances. I thought it was a very earnest, honest kind of performance. And I was kind of used to watching wacky performances from Williams, like Jumanji and those kind of films. So that was quite different for me. But then I watched De Niro, and De Niro was mesmerizing in the film because it's obviously a very physical performance. And you watch the film and you really think he has this disease. It was a really good performance. But then on top of the technical elements, like, you know, acting like he's got the disease, the emotion that he gets through the character, with the frustration and the sadness, and the kind of sweet, kind of boyish love he has for that woman in the film, where he's almost like a kid. And remembering that this is the same, or not the same, 1 year after Goodfellas, where he was terrifying. It's just ridiculous how good of an actor Robert De Niro was, and still is. Steve is talking about Fargo. The new season is one of the best so far. I haven't seen that at all. That's another TV show I haven't seen. I'm really far behind when it comes to television. Right, so guys, I did say we'll clock out about 2 hours. We've gone 10 minutes past. Uh, shall we call it a day now? I think it's been a good live stream. Some interesting discussions going around. It's been very long. I always used to say that I want to keep them short and sweet, half an hour, 45 minutes at most. But I always fail to do that, and now I don't even bother. I don't even bother saying that at the beginning of the live stream. But yeah, I think it was a good live stream today, and I think we'll call it a day there, lads. So wherever you are, mate, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and I enjoyed it very much. So I hope you did as well. I hope I didn't bore you too much. Uh, have a good day wherever you are, and hopefully I will see you next week Saturday. See you guys.